I think it is, because before the draft, before they made the trade for A.J. Brown, before they went and added all these different players, and before they got Bradbury, the 22 team was looking a whole lot like the 21 team. And in that scenario, I don't know that they would have felt great about their chances in 2022. But they've added a ton of talent here in the last month or so, and they've really filled some holes. I think that they have increased the floor. The level of competence in the secondary increased dramatically when they brought Bradbury aboard. And so you've got really two sure things at cornerback, three sure things, quarterback 1, 2, and 3. You know, Avonte Maddox is a quality slot corner. I think you feel really good about your pass defense as far as covering wide receivers is concerned. And really, safety is the only area on the defense that, like you said, there isn't going to be a big training camp battle.
A Tuesday edition of Birds 365. You got your Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald, talking about the Birds on the field. Yeah, the Birds are going to be on the field today for about 37 seconds. No, just kidding. Not heavy work, but nice to get the Birds back on the field. You know, talk about the Eagles, and we haven't had him on since the draft, and we do want to get his take on the entire Howie Roseman offseason. John Stolnis, contributor for Bleeding Green Nation, and also podcast co-host for Eye on the Enemy. John, how's your summer going so far?
It's going good so far. I mean, I'm a Phillies fan too, so I mean that, you know, wish we had some live sports that were interesting, but I think that just gears us up for the Birds, right?
Yeah. It's funny, John, because I think the rest of the teams in Philadelphia have all gotten into a sort of conspiracy to make things easier for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Because evidently they all want to. Not that it's hard for the Eagles, yeah.
Right.
But they make it easier. They somehow make it easier. So I agree with you. And it's tough to get through. And that's why on-field work is exciting, even though it's not exciting. And the Eagles are not going to do team drills. So Nick Sirianni's already confirmed it's scaled back to 7-on-7s, pretty much only individual work. I want to get into, and we'll be there Friday, reporters, so we'll get to see some of it on Friday. But to me, this is list season, and I've seen a lot of, I don't know if they're interesting lists, but call them what you want. So I want to get your take on some of those. And
okay,
it starts with Pro Football Focus last week. Jody and I talked about this a little bit. They put their 3 best players for each team, 3 best pure football players.
Mm-hmm.
For the Philadelphia Eagles, I want John Stolnis's 3 best pure football players, not value position, not helping you win, just who does their job the best.
It's funny you mentioned lists. I kind of did a list similar to this a couple of weeks ago, where I ranked the 10 best players in the NFC East. And I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly, I had 3 Eagles on that list. I had Jordan Mailata on that list. I had A.J. Brown on that list, and I had Darius Slay on that list. And I think all 3 of those guys, because it's so hard to compare positions, right? An offensive lineman does totally different things and is a totally different kind of player than a cornerback, and they're both totally different from the kind of skills a wide receiver has. So you're comparing different skill sets between all these different guys. And so Jordan Mailata just has that size and the natural freak athletic ability to be able to have never played football before and then come here and in a few years be able to play it at the highest level possible. And then you've got a guy like Brown, who is a playmaking wide receiver. He's got such amazing body control that he can do so much across the middle of the field, combined with toughness and good hands. And then you've got in Darius Slay, a guy who, if you just look at strict cover ability last year in single coverage, was the best cornerback in the NFL according to quarterback ratings. So those are my 3. Those are the 3 that I had on the list. But I think you could make an argument that Lane Johnson should be on there. You could even still make an argument that Jason Kelce should be on there somewhere. There's a few guys you could make an argument for as far as top 3, because comparing positions is difficult and tricky.
Yeah, I think Pro Football Focus, correct me if I'm wrong, John, had Mailata, Brown, and Johnson were their 3. So you're right. The Eagles, the fact that the Eagles have a couple of guys you can debate means the Eagles are in pretty good position. There are some teams where you go, really? I got to come up with a third? You're pushing me for 3 here? The Eagles have a couple of guys that you can actually put into that. John mentioned this in the first segment, strength of the Eagles being offensive line. And if Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata are 2 or 3, that kind of speaks to the offensive line. They added even more, taking Juergens in the draft here, this past draft, the eventual center taking over for Jason Kelce, and who knows when we'll do this dance with Jason Kelce for as many years as he wants to do it, to stick around and play. How good is the Eagles' offensive line compared to everyone else in the National Football League? Can you take a stance? They're the best, top 3, top 5. How would you rank the Eagles' offensive line against the rest of the league?
I would feel comfortable saying top 5. I think that, the Cowboys' offensive line is still really good too. If they're healthy, I think it's a real battle between those two. But the key is the Cowboys' offensive line being healthy. Now, the Eagles have had their share of injuries on the offensive line in recent seasons, too. Last year was a pretty good year, with the exception of Brandon Brooks going down in the preseason. But I think the Eagles certainly, have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. You look at the tackle spots, which are just so hugely important with Johnson and Mailata protecting Jalen Hurts on each side. And Kelce is still doing it, at his age. He's still as mobile as ever, getting downfield, helping the run game. And I think, at the guard position, they've got some good young talent there. They've got some promising guys. I think it's a unit that, with Jeff Stoutland as their coach too, continues to improve. He's just incredible at getting these guys to get better at the NFL level, which is difficult. I mean, you often think about players when they come out of college that's pretty much what they are. But Stoutland is a guy who really does develop NFL offensive linemen into guys who can be productive starters. So with Sayamalo there, and you've got Landon Dickerson, who just had a really solid rookie season at guard. I think it's a really good unit, and I think you might be able to put them in the top 3. I think top 5 is where I would have them right now.
Yeah, in fact, we were talking about lists. There was another list. I'll try to look it up in the break. I just saw last week that did have the Eagles number 1 as far as offensive line. But you're right, John. There's always a couple teams. Cleveland still has a really good offensive line, even though J.C. Tretter's still out there, and maybe his status as the NFLPA president is affecting his ability to be signed, because he's still a top 5 center in this league. Tampa Bay, even though they lost Alex Kappa and Ali Marpet, they were able to bring in Shaq Mason, who might be better than both of them at guard. So they're still really good. So there's a few teams. Kansas City's really good as well. Baltimore, especially if Ronnie Stanley comes back. But the Eagles are firmly in that top 5. I don't think there's any doubt about it. The one, perhaps concern is right guard, which is going to be one of the few. And this is also a good sign in my mind, John, is the fact that as we head towards training camp, there's not going to be a ton of positional battles. You kind of know who's going to be where. That to me is a good thing. Right guard, though, you have Isaac Seumalo trying to flip over. You have Jack Driscoll, who played very well. Both are injury prone. If I had to pin you down and say who's going to win that right guard spot, is it going to be one of those two, or is it going to be a Cam Juergens? Is it going to be a Tesla stock, a Suo Opeta? Who's going to be starting right guard for the Eagles?
It's great that they have so much balance there, and I think it's going to be Seumalo if he can stay healthy. I think he's got so many years under Stoutland already. I think when he's healthy, plays pretty well. He's certainly not a weak link. I mean, I guess if you look at how good the other guys on the offensive line, he probably is the weakest of the 5, but he's a good player. I don't see, unless he really looks like he's lost a step somehow, or there's some kind of other issue going on with him, I think he probably is the leader in the clubhouse to win the right guard job. Now, Jack Driscoll has shown that he's a very capable fill-in and could probably start in this league, and probably will at some point start for the Eagles. But I think it's Seumalo's job to lose right now.
Agreed. All right, let me ask you about the safety position, because it's the one area that the Eagles haven't really brought in anybody from outside. Howie Roseman's had a real good offseason, acquiring free agents. Certainly the draft worked out well. Even the undrafted free agents they signed, people said that they're one of the best at their position. So a lot of kudos for Howie Roseman. He's going with what he's got at safety, and that includes more playing time for Marcus Epps. Anthony Harris coming back to be Anthony Harris, which last year was okay at best. I think everyone is just waiting for another shoe to drop, and that the Eagles will do something at safety to upgrade, because Howie's upgraded everywhere else. You think that happens, or you think they are willing to go back to war with the guys that they had in at the safety position last year?
I think they actually do like what they have at safety. I mean, you heard a lot of conversation during the offseason about how much they liked all the young cornerbacks that they had, but their actions will tell you exactly what they mean. And I think so far, I mean, we've seen them. They have tried to upgrade the safety position. I mean, they had conversations with Tyrann Mathieu. So I mean, it's clear that I think they would upgrade if the right opportunity came along. I don't think they want to pour the money into the position. I feel like, it's one of those things where they would figure out a way to bring another safety on if they really wanted to spend the money on it, if they didn't like Marcus Epps and if they didn't like what they had there in Anthony Harris. So I think now June 1st here is a big date on the NFL calendar. Once you get past the state, trades are a little bit more likely because you can spread some of the money around into future years. And so you might start to see the safety market for the Eagles move a little bit if they do decide that they want to upgrade there. But I think I also don't want to eliminate all young players, from this defense. They do have a fair amount of young guys that they drafted on the defensive line and a linebacker, but it's a very veteran group in the secondary. And I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Marcus Epps get a shot and see what he can do, especially if getting a safety is going to really hammer you with the cap. But we'll see what happens here with June 1st, coming around tomorrow and whether they decide to make a move. But I feel like they really do like Marcus Epps. I think they want to see if he can win the job.
Another young player I want to talk about, John, is Jalen Reagor. For this reason, June 1st on field, but off the field, Jalen went, obviously, the NFL as a whole. Jeff Gladney, who was a teammate of Jalen Reagor, TCU. They were both first-round picks in, I believe, 2020. 2020. But tragically passed away in an auto accident. Jalen was very close to him. I think people forget last year he missed the first, I think it was 3 or 4 days of training camp because one of his childhood friends died. So we always talk about the on-the-field stuff with Jalen Reagor, but he's gone through a lot off the field as well. And all while he's trying to sort of save his NFL career here in Philadelphia. It doesn't look good from a depth chart standpoint. We look at, obviously, the top three: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal from there as a Nick Sirianni favorite. You still have Greg Ward. But this team does need a kick returner. It's not as important as it once was.
Right.
Both elements, punt returner, kick returner. Jalen was sort of the first option for the team. Again, not necessarily successful. Is Jalen Reagor going to be here at the start of training camp, John?
Man, that is a great question. And because I don't think Jalen Reagor can be the punt returner and kick returner last year. He really struggled in those roles. And I don't think that they should go into this season with somebody who's that unproven or has proven to be that shaky at doing that job. Again, with June 1st, I think it's a little bit easier for teams to maybe make a trade for Jalen Reagor, who's still on his rookie contract, but as a first-round pick, then the money's a little bit more than it would be if it was for a lower-round pick. So you might see Reagor move in the next few weeks and months, and especially if there's any receivers that go down on other teams, they might come calling. I feel like you got to get something else at kick returner and punt returner because that's not a position you have to throw a lot of money at anyway. So it wouldn't hurt the Eagles cap to go out and get somebody. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know who's out there that they could go and get to return punts and kicks. And maybe there's an in-house option that we're not thinking of. But
Britton Kobe, John, great punt returner at Utah, but he's also, I think 5'8", 160 pounds.
Yeah,
he's not very big.
It's Jeremy Bloom-like, right? Remember how excited we were about Jeremy Bloom a while back? Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think they have to do a little bit better there because you're right. Kick returns, it doesn't really matter all that much. Everything's a touchback nowadays. But punt returns are still a big deal. You need somebody back there you can depend on. That is a really hard job. And Jalen Reagor just didn't appear to be very comfortable doing it last year. So I tend to think he won't be on this team once training camp rolls around.
All right, John, I want to ask you about the general mindset of this first true group gathering, get some activities in, even if it's not real football, where the Eagles' collective mind is at. Coming off last year, the year before they had been 4-11-1.
Right.
Not too many people picked them to make the playoffs last year, and they did. Winning record 9-7 before the JV played against the Cowboys. So I consider them a 9-7, not a 9-8 team last year. But they did what they did. But then they got their clock cleaned by Tampa Bay in that first round playoff game. How good is the mindset of this team coming in? If you're looking to build off what you did last year, certainly more good than bad, but kind of a clunker of an ending, is the overall mindset for this group, as many coming back as there are, in a good place, in your opinion?
I think it is, because before the draft, before they made the trade for A.J. Brown, before they went and added all these different players, and before they got Bradbury, the 22 team was looking a whole lot like the 21 team. And in that scenario, I don't know that they would have felt great about their chances in 2022. But they've added a ton of talent here in the last month or so, and they've really filled some holes. I think that they have increased the floor. The level of competence in the secondary increased dramatically when they brought Bradbury aboard. And so you've got really three sure things, quarterback 1, 2, and 3. Avonte Maddox is a quality slot corner. I think you feel really good about your pass defense as far as covering wide receivers is concerned. And really, safety is the only area on the defense that, like you said, there isn't going to be a big training camp battle. They actually invested in linebacker. They've invested in the defensive line. I think that could be a strength for them. And, maybe now Jonathan Gannon has the tools at his disposal to do what he wanted to do, things he couldn't do last year. Offensively, I think getting A.J. Brown here really makes it a legitimate passing game now. You're not going to have Jalen Reagor on the field for 60% of the offensive snaps, or however many it was last year, which was entirely too many. You're not going to be relying on John Hightower to try and squeeze a square peg into a round hole and hoping that you find something. So, with the running back situation, I still think they need another running back. They haven't replaced Jordan Howard yet, but it's kind of easy to find a running back during the summer and once training camp rolls around. So it all comes down to Jalen Hurts. Can Jalen Hurts do this? Can Jalen Hurts use all these new weapons at his disposal to make this a viable passing offense? You have got to have a viable passing offense in this league to be successful. And until he shows that, I don't think we know for a fact whether or not this team is going to be a top 10 team like Peter King seems to think that they are. But the potential is there, and he's got the tools at his disposal. All the excuses are gone. And if you're an Eagle in that locker room and you're looking around and you see what Howie Roseman did this offseason, I think you have to feel good about your chances of being one of the favorites in the NFC East here. I think it's going to be a neck and neck battle with the Cowboys all season long. But I think you've at least, outside the quarterback position, I think the Eagles roster is better than the Cowboys roster. But that quarterback position is so important, and we'll see whether or not Hurts is up to the job.
It is, and I agree with you, John. I said from 2 through 53, to me, it looks like the Eagles are the better team, at least on paper now, than the Dallas Cowboys. But hey, quarterback 1 is what it is. Arguably the most important position in sports. You might say starting pitcher on a particular day in baseball, but it's in the conversation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jalen Hurts, and I'll continue with my list theme. Obviously Chris Sims, a lot of people got upset about him last week. What was he, 25, Jody? Jalen Hurts on 25th. I think that was a little harsh of Chris Sims, but who cares? I did see Dan Orlovsky came out today. He listed his quarterbacks, as he described it, you win games because of right now. And the list was 11 deep. And obviously Jalen Hurts is not on that list, shouldn't be on that list. My question to you, can he be on that list? Is the upside, you mentioned the floor of this team being higher, is the upside of Jalen Hurts the ability to make that Dan Orlovsky list somewhere down the line?
I would say I'm more pessimistic than optimistic that he can be that guy, simply because we didn't see a guy in college who lit it up throwing the football. And so you come to the NFL level where it's more difficult for sure to throw the football. We haven't seen Jalen Hurts be able to throw the ball over the middle of the field with any regularity or effectiveness. And so I think we have to see that before we know that. I think he had a good season last year. But that came mostly because of his running ability. He had some games where he threw the ball really well, and there were glimpses last year when you would see him do some things where you could say, okay, the wheels are turning here. There is something there. But we also don't often see quarterbacks make a big leap as a passer at the NFL level. I mean, Josh Allen is one, but Josh Allen was also a great thrower in college. And so, he came to the NFL level and struggled, but then really worked at it and has turned into one of the best passing quarterbacks in the league. I don't know that we shouldn't expect Jalen Hurts to do anything like what Josh Allen did. We just need Jalen Hurts to be a competent thrower, somebody who can throw the football over the middle of the field and beat good defenses from time to time. And until that happens, I can't put him on that list. I think the odds are probably better not than they are good that he becomes one of those passing quarterbacks. But I think the ability is there. It's whether or not he can unlock it.
All right, John, I need you to handicap Eagle Nation for me because, I host shows here in town, talk to Eagle fans all the time. Yeah. We'll do it all year again this year. And I started back in 1990 when the quarterback was Randall Cunningham. Mm-hmm. And I compared Jalen Hurts to Randall Cunningham last week in that they both make amazing plays with their legs. Hurts had 10 rushing touchdowns this past year. Randall never had 10 rushing touchdowns in a given season. And I think people underestimate what that contribution meant to the Eagle offense last year.
Yeah.
If they're going to throw the ball more than they did last season, and everybody seems to believe that's the case. And if you believe the owner, that's the way you win in the National Football League. So that's why they paid Mr. Brown $25 million per. We're all assuming they're going to throw the football more this year, which means they're going to run it less. And part of that running it less is Jalen Hurts running it less. If they do that, how much will subtracting what Jalen did with his legs last year actually hurt the Philadelphia Eagle offense? And will the fans even notice it? Because I know they noticed it when Randall did it, but no one talked about, this guy's the second best running quarterback in the National Football League behind only Lamar Jackson last year. It kind of went under the radar for me. Is it a bigger deal this year?
I think if you want to beat the good teams, you've got to do it through the air. I think we saw that in the Buccaneers game. We saw that every good team they played last year, they were able to kind of contain Jalen Hurts' running ability. I think Jalen Hurts is still going to be really dangerous near the goal line if they do decide to be more of a passing offense. And that's where he really shines as a weapon, is inside the 10-yard line. You just don't know whether he's going to throw it or tuck it and run. And so in that case, I think you still have a really valuable weapon there, and teams are still going to have to game plan for Jalen Hurts as a runner too. So I think the addition of AJ Brown just is so huge for opening things up for this offense, and I don't think that Eagles fans will miss Jalen Hurts' running ability if he's targeting AJ Brown and Devontae Smith is piling up 1,200 yards of receiving yards, and you've got Quez Watkins as a number 3 receiver who's got 800 yards receiving and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think Eagles fans just want to see this team beat good teams. And I think when you do that, they don't really care whether it's Jalen Hurts running for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns or whether he's throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. They'll take it however they can get it. And for the Eagles' sake and for the fans' sake, it's better if Jalen Hurts is able to do a little bit of both in 2022, which he just wasn't able to do really at all last year.
John, last one from me. You can read John, obviously, at Bleeding Green Nation. Listen to him. On the Enemy podcast. He had a good one this week, actually.
Yeah, I hope
I didn't drag you down too much, John.
It's a pleasure having you on.
I was on there, so everybody listened to that. Let's end it on a pessimistic note. Why not? I think everyone looks at this team and rightfully so says, well, they're better than what they were last year. So last year was what it was. They were a playoff team. You can say the schedule, but the schedule looks easy this year. They were disappointing, obviously, in Tampa Bay. They should be better. They added A.J. Brown, Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all good. We know how this works out. We've seen Eagles teams hype before. You mentioned Peter King. This is a top 10 team. If they take a step back, how does that happen, John? Besides the obvious of injuries,
yeah,
what makes this team not reach its ceiling?
Jalen Hurts.
Hmm?
I really wish there was a better answer than that, or a more detailed answer than that. But if Jalen Hurts struggles, then this team doesn't reach where they want to go. Or I guess I'll add one other thing. We still have no idea if Jonathan Gannon can coach a defense. Last year, they were able to kind of mitigate points, but they allowed good quarterbacks to do whatever they wanted against that defense. Now, again, the schedule is very much in their favor. It's really hard to see how this Eagles team doesn't win at least 9 games this year, given the schedule that they have. But that being said, if the defensive line doesn't perform the way we think it will, Brandon Graham comes back and he's just not effective, and they're not getting to the quarterback. And if this hybrid scheme that Jonathan Gannon wants to run just takes a year for everybody to kind of get their feet under them, and it's a little bit of a mess, that could be one of the ways you see this team really stumble. And the other is if Jalen Hurts just doesn't improve throwing the football. But even last year when he wasn't throwing the football very well, they were still good enough to score points. So I think we saw Nick Sirianni be able to be flexible enough to change the offense around when his passing offense didn't work. And I think he would do that again if the same thing were to happen. So I don't think it's likely that we see this team drop to 6 or 7 wins. But if it happens, it's because Jonathan Gannon doesn't know what he's doing on defense and Jalen Hurts is struggling.
And one of the things I did like about Nick Sirianni in his first year was when he needed to adjust, he adjusted.
Yeah.
They got off to the slow start. Everyone was worried. He came out, and at least within the team meetings, then we could evidence ourselves on Sundays, we got to run the football. Right now, we're not throwing it well enough for varying reasons. But if we want to try and win, we got to run, even though we'd prefer our default setting is to throw it as many times as we're throwing it.
Right.
The fault is in losing needs to change. And they did. They ran the football more. They won more. They ended up making the playoffs. So good on Sirianni and that he was willing to adjust. Yep. And we even saw it way back in camp. Johnny and I did the shows last year when he was there every day. And John used to note, the coach keeps going to a 2 tight end set. Even though they've said they want to get away from the 2 tight end set, they keep putting 2 tight ends out there. Why? Because they might be the 2 best wide receivers on the team, right now. Don't know how much he's going to use a 2 tight end set this year because Goddard is the man. There's no Zach Ertz here. Mm-hmm. But they're going to do it at times. And cross your fingers, Goddard stays healthy all year long, but injuries happen to everybody. What do you think the pecking order is at backup tight end for the Eagles this year? If you want to call it TE2, TE3, the developmental tight ends and the like, how would you look at the Eagles depth chart at tight end after Goddard if they need to have those guys step up and contribute?
It's funny. With Zach Ertz going to Arizona and actually having a really good season out there, I think kind of surprised everybody how productive he was out there. I think they really like Tyree Jackson. I think if he hadn't gotten hurt last year, he definitely would have seen some more targets, and he would have seen some more tight end sets. It's a shame Richard Rodgers isn't here. We'll pour one out for Richard Rodgers, who seemed to be a perennial
still
tight
here,
end.
technically.
Is he still here?
Yeah, still here.
Okay.
Still here.
Okay. All right.
But he's behind the glass, so they might they might have to. I think he's it's a sci-fi film. They have these tubes in the back. Yeah. Julian Vanderbilt is still back there. Richard Rodgers is in that crew.
He's in some kind of formaldehyde jar where they're just kind of waiting to break him out. And Jack Stoll, I think, is actually number 2 on the depth chart in some places I've seen. But I think Tyree, if Tyree is healthy, I think he probably offers the most upside as the second tight end. And so it depends what Nick Sirianni wants to do with them, too, if he wants them to be passers or if he wants them to be run blockers mostly. But Tyree Jackson is the more interesting of the backup tight ends. He'd be the guy that I would want to see the most in training camp and in the preseason games, because if they're not going to play their starters, which it certainly doesn't sound like they're going to do, might see a lot of run from Tyree Jackson as tight end 1. He'd probably be my choice to be the backup if all things are being equal.
No, I went and hyped your podcast, and you get McMullen on as a guest, and now I have to question.
Now we got to get Jody on now. Yeah, that's right.
Anytime, buddy. You've been good enough to come on with us. Anytime I can come on with you, that's perfectly fine.
Wonderful.
you'll get even less views if you put me on than you did McMullen. But we'll give it a shot if you want to go down that road. John, yes. We appreciate you coming down our road with us. We will certainly be getting you back during the offseason when the Eagles are in a camp and we get a little closer to the regular season. Thanks for helping out with us today.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks a lot.